It turns out then people started realizing that technology was getting better and I was getting better. In the early 2010s, deep learning kind of suddenly rose into prominence. And then there was an important book published by Brynjolfsson and McAfee, The Race Against the Machine. And suddenly it became clear that this is not just a toy. We are building serious tools that are affecting productivity. And at some point, they may affect people's job. And so I got into this. In fact, I started formally, I would say, in 2012. It was the 100th birthday of Alan Turing, the Turing Centenary. Manchester University organized a symposium, invited me to come and asked me to join a panel on the big question. So I had to say, what is a truly big question? And I decided the question was, if machines can do everything that humans can do, what will humans do? And that to me was really the point when I started studying seriously the interplay between computing technology, information technology, and society. Are worried again about jobs. That's a huge worry now. I mean, there are more and more headlines in the paper again about AI and jobs and other things. For example, there are lawsuits against people who've committed suicide because a virtual companion told them, yeah, it's okay, go ahead, make my day. So the anxiety level is just increasing, and it means that the computing discipline has to take a very hard look. So there was a book written, I think, maybe in the 1960s or 70s. It was called Future Shock, Alvin Toffler, Future Shock. And the answer is that humanity is very adapt to big, huge changes. I mean, we came a long way from dwelling in caves, but we don't adapt quickly. Human beings do not like to change quickly, okay? And when things are forced on us, when fast changes are forced on us, we do not handle it well. I mean, it's not, like very, very personally, and that's why very often it takes a generation for things, there is a phrase about science, and it says, old theories do not die, but old theorists do. So kind of science often change by a new generation comes in who's more open to certain ideas. And this is also true for human beings, We change over, there is a generational pace, but when you push faster over people's in their own lifetime, these are very, very difficult for people to handle. And things now are moving very fast. I think right now, honestly, faster than humanity can absorb it. There is enormous amount of money at stake. So there is industry that pushes in a dramatic way. And the answer is, we have no idea where we're going right now as a society. So the answer is, we have to understand, the reason we have technology is because human beings are lazy. We don't like to work hard. We don't like to sweat. We have to force ourselves. There was actually a funny picture circulated a decade ago about a fitness club, which was on the second story. And there was an escalator going up to the second story. So people go to the fitness club to use a treadmill, but God forbid they'll take the stairs to go up there. And we just don't like to work hard. And you can say on one hand, that's why we develop technology, because it's going to be easier for us. The question is, what happens when human capabilities atrophy because we don't use them? You go back and, just not that long ago, and there was no obesity problem because people had to walk everywhere. And now, if I have to go to supermarket, it was, we can do an experiment. If it's like 300 feet, yeah, I'll walk there. How about 1,000 feet? How about a mile? Most people will take the car too. If it's a mile to the supermarket, they'll take the car. And so what happened now, we have to force ourselves to walk. Now it's become not I walk because I need to walk, because I walk because I must move my body. So I'm going to take walks. I'm going to lift weights because what used to be natural is not natural anymore. So now we're getting, bicycle for the mind, as Steve Jobs called it, okay? We don't need to think very hard because we have someone else thinking for us. What would it mean? Especially for young people, they never have to think very hard. Every question they have, they just go and ask Gen AI, what is the answer to that? And I hear about the phenomenon that people who start with e-dating, and the first communication is texting, but what you really don't have two people texting to each other. We have one version of ChatGPT texting to another version of ChatGPT because everybody wants to sound clever and to say something good. So let's use the LLM to say that. But now we have people whose conversational skills are declining because they don't have to make the effort to come up with a clever answer, with something interesting to say. And the thing mostly I focus in my talk is the fact that human relationships are such a central part of who we are as humans, for better and worse. I mean, the French philosopher Paul Sartre said, hell is other people. He did not like other people. He got along with himself, but he really didn't like other people. But especially during COVID, we learned heaven is other people. Being deprived of other people is a punishment. But as we all know, it takes effort to be with other people. You know, it can be very satisfying, but there are always friction. We have to manage relationship. And partly you kind of learn to do it. You make mistakes. So what happened? What did I say? Why was he offended? Why was she offended? And you kind of think how many advice columns I see about what do men want, what do women want, you know? It's been a mystery. We're trying to figure it out now for a long time. But with virtual friends or virtual companion, you don't have this friction. You eliminate friction, but you eliminate challenge. If you eliminate challenge, what is the meaning of these relationships? I mean, it's like many things in life. We appreciate that we overcome challenges. And suddenly, if you imagine, in fact, there is a whole debate about the anxious generation. There was a book called The Anxious Generation, about the generation that seems just suffering from anxiety. We see it in our college students these days. And there are debates what's causing it. One factor to blame was smartphone and social media. But another argument is we just have eliminated unstructured play between unstructured time for children. Well, things happen. You fight with other kids, you have to make up with other kids, you fall, you get up, it's part of how you learn some resilience by having to make decisions by yourself. But if everything is structured and everything becomes nice and managed because you're dealing with virtual companions, we're losing our ability to connect with other human beings. So, psychologists would tell us that intelligence, there are two types of intelligence to talk about IQ and EQ, emotional intelligence. Partly emotional intelligence, we kind of learn by experience. So I'm worried we're going to develop a generation that will have no emotional intelligence. So, what happened is we have done something that in some sense you can say this time, I would say we have done something that we expect usually God to do. God create species. Okay, we kind of the Bible tell us that. I'm not talking about religion here, but it's at least a metaphor. God created the natural world, and then our job was to master it. We have domesticated a certain species. So in some sense you can say like the modern dog, the domesticated dog, that's just kind of a species we kind of created in some sense, but over tens of thousands of years. But here we kind of created a new species in a very short number of times. Even if you take the longest definition of how long has AI been coming, or people talking about some paper in the early 40s, so we're talking about maybe, 80 years. It's still very, very short time. And suddenly there is a new intelligent species on the block. In fact, we kind of know, we talk about spoiled brats, and we kind of see what happened to very rich people who don't have to do anything. Everything is done for them. And it changes who they are as people, because part of being a human being is there is some element of struggle and making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. I think if you eliminate that, to me, this is not a utopia. This is a dystopia. So, many of these themes have been covered in literature. Think of something like, what was it called? The Lord of the Fly, a bunch of kids on an island. And it's a dystopia because they just never learn how to all work together. How do we resolve differences? Huge issue. There is one when people, I've been married for almost 40 years, And people ask, okay, what's the secret? I said, agreement is easy. Disagreement is hard. How do you resolve disagreement and you stay together? But again, all of this we learn the hard way very often. If everything in life is easy, to me, this is not a life worth living. So I have hopes AI will help us make certain scientific breakthroughs. But I'm interested in particular in the breakthroughs that contribute directly to human welfare. I look now and I still see cancer. Cancer is a scourge. A friend of mine just died a few weeks ago from lung cancer. Never a smoker, ate well, exercised well, suddenly lung cancer, just out of the blue, fought it for 5 years and eventually succumbed. That feels to me just kind of what a waste. And so I'm hoping that AI will help us to make certain things for human welfare. And that to me is actually the role of technology, is ultimately to contribute to human welfare, not to human convenience, not to make life easy for us, but to make life better and more meaningful for us. Unfortunately, what I see now is the industry is just purely motivated by the profit and not saying, okay, it's a powerful tool. Let's develop it for the benefit of humanity. They're pushing for AGI. They're not saying why they want AGI, okay? Let's focus on how to develop technology. I wrote a column a few years ago, and I call it To Serve Humanity. And it's based on a science fiction story and the duality of the term to serve humanity. And in the story, some aliens arrive to Earth, and the interaction is beginning kind of friendly, and they have the book, and it's written, of course, in any alien language. And when they say, what is it about? The title of the book is To Serve Humanity. And it takes a while. People finally manage to decipher the language of the aliens, and they realize it's a recipe book. And so kind of the meaning to serve humanity actually has a duality, right? Is it to serve humanity, to do something for humanity, or to serve humanity on a platter? And so is technology serving us, or are we serving humanity to technology? And I think that ultimately it should be about human welfare, human benefit. And that's what we should focus technology on.